"Your things are ready, Mom." Jessica's words landed on me like a physical blow. I looked around the dining room. Me, my daughter, my son-in-law David, and my 2 grandkids, Gabe and Sophie. The table still held the remnants of the dinner I'd prepared. My famous chicken and dumplings, the one the kids always clamored for. "Ready? What do you mean, ready?" My voice cracked. Jessica avoided my gaze, fiddling with her napkin as if the carefully rehearsed speech was written right there on the linen. "The apartment we mentioned. It's available starting tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The word was a breath. "But I thought we'd have more time to..." "It's better this way, Linda." David cut in, that formal tone of his like a cold blade. He always spoke to me as if I were a distant acquaintance, not his wife's mother. "Rip off the Band-Aid, for everyone's good." Gabe, my 8-year-old grandson, remained glued to his tablet, oblivious, or pretending to be, as his grandmother was effectively dismissed. Sophie, only 6, gave me a fleeting glance before returning to poke at her food. "Kids," my voice trembled. "Grandma's moving to a new apartment. You'll come visit me, won't you?" Gabe shrugged, eyes still fixed on his screen. Sophie just offered a limp, unenthusiastic nod. In that moment, it hit me. My own grandchildren had already been prepped for my absence. Maybe they were tired of me too. "The taxi's picking you up at 10 a.m., Jessica continued, her voice now firm, businesslike. "I've already packed your clothes and personal items. The rest of your furniture we sent to storage until you decide what to do with it." The air left my lungs in a rush. 5 years. 5 years living in that house after Paul died. 5 years pouring my life into raising those children, cooking their meals, weaving bedtime stories, nursing them through fevers. And now, on a random Wednesday night, I was being discarded like an old, ill-fitting piece of furniture. "Can I at least finish packing my own things?" I asked, clinging to a last thread of dignity. "It's all done, Mom. Don't worry. Don't worry." As if I were embarking on a cruise, not being torn from my family. You must be wondering how it came to this. How a mother and grandmother could be ushered out of her own daughter's home, her grandkids barely registering her departure. I spent countless sleepless nights asking myself the very same question. It all started so naturally, so logically. When Paul passed from a sudden heart attack 5 years ago, our big house became a cavern of echoes, memories, and silence. Jessica suggested I sell it and move into their place. They had a guest room downstairs. "It'll be perfect, Mom," she'd said back then, clasping my hands. "You can help us with the kids, and you won't be alone in that house full of ghosts." It sounded like the perfect solution. I just lost my partner of 40 years, and the thought of being alone terrified me. Besides, I'd be close to my grandkids, watching them grow every single day. So I sold the house where Paul and I had built our life, where we'd raised Jessica, and brought only the essentials to their place. In the beginning, it was just as Jessica promised. I'd handle school drop-offs and pickups while she and David worked. I'd prepare lunch, help with homework, tell stories before bed. Gabe and Sophie would race into my arms when they got home, begging for my special chocolate chip cookies, the ones only Grandma knew how to make just right. The first changes were subtle. David started making pointed comments about my permissiveness with the children. "Linda, I don't think it's a good idea to give them sweets before dinner," he'd say, and I'd quickly hide the plate of cookies I'd just offered Gabe. "They need clearer boundaries," was another frequent refrain. Usually when I was comforting Sophie after a scolding I deemed excessive. Jessica, who initially defended me, saying, "Mom, leave her alone. The kids love them," gradually grew silent. She started agreeing with her husband, echoing his phrases, looking at me with that apologetic expression that somehow managed to convey no apology at all. Then came the complaints about space. My few belongings, which fit perfectly in the designated room, suddenly became clutter. "Mom, these boxes of photographs take up so much space," Jessica would say. "And those old books collect dust. It's not good for the kids' allergies." They were photographs of our entire family life, the books Paul and I had collected over decades. But I boxed everything up. The boxes went to the back of the closet, then to the basement, and finally to a rented storage unit. 3 months before that fateful Wednesday night, I caught Jessica rummaging through my drawers. "What are you doing?" I asked, startled to find her with my things strewn across the bed. "Just organizing, Mom," she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. "You keep so much unnecessary stuff." Among the unnecessary items were the letters Paul had written to me when we were dating, Jessica's baby shoes, and my wedding ring, the one I no longer wore due to arthritis. That same week, I noticed the children no longer ran to hug me. Gabe preferred his video games, Sophie her tablet. When I tried to read them stories, I'd hear, "Not now, Grandma," or they'd simply tune me out. I realized too late that I was being systematically erased from that house, from that family. The morning after the announcement, the taxi arrived promptly at 10 a.m. My life, reduced to 4 large suitcases and a few bags. All that remained of 67 years. "The apartment address is here," Jessica said, handing me a slip of paper. "It's paid for 3 months, so you can get settled. It's small, but cozy." Small was an understatement. I later learned it was a 350-square-foot apartment in an old building clear across town, miles from everything and everyone I knew. "And when will I see the kids?" I asked, biting back tears. "We can arrange Sunday visits, maybe," she replied, glancing at her watch. "Or you can come for their birthdays." Gabe shuffled out, clearly prodded by someone. "Bye, Grandma," he mumbled, offering a quick, perfunctory hug before darting back inside, no doubt to his video game. Sophie waved from the doorway, tablet still clutched in her hand, as if I were a teacher. She was bidding farewell at the end of the school year. Jessica gave me a quick, stiff hug. "We'll talk, Mom. It'll be better this way, you'll see. You'll have your independence back." Independence. As if, at 67, having lost my husband, what I yearned for most was to live alone in a minuscule apartment, far from my family. The taxi driver loaded my bags into the trunk. I slid into the back seat, looking out the window one last time. Jessica was already closing the front door, not waiting for the taxi to pull away. Her face showed relief, not sadness. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. I looked at the address on the paper, a knot tightening in my throat. "To a place that isn't home," I replied, as the first tears finally streamed down my face. The first few days in the apartment were a blur of tears and confusion. The space was so cramped, my bed and a small couch barely fit. The kitchen was a narrow galley, the bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Damp spots stained the walls, and the roar of the street seeped in through the poorly sealed windows. I arranged my clothes in the tiny built-in closet. The few photographs I'd managed to bring found a spot on the small coffee table. One of Paul and me on our wedding day. Another of baby Jessica. A more recent one with Gabe and Sophie. I stared at the phone constantly, willing it to ring. for Jessica to call, to ask if I was okay, if I needed anything, for the children to simply want to talk to Grandma. The phone rarely rang. In the first few weeks, Jessica called every 3 or 4 days. Short, perfunctory conversations. "Is everything all right there, Mom?" "Yes, honey. And the kids?" "They're fine. Gabe started swimming lessons. Sophie has a ballet recital." "Can I come see?" "Oh, that's just for parents. It gets too crowded, you know." Whenever I suggested visiting, there was always an impediment. Extra classes, work commitments, house renovations. The promises of Sunday visits never materialized. "Can't make it this weekend, Mom. David has a work lunch." "Maybe next weekend, then?" "Yeah, maybe." 3 months dissolved like that. Me confined to that tiny apartment, gazing out the window, counting the days between increasingly rare calls. I started talking to the potted plants I bought for company. I cried, scrolling through photos of my grandkids on my phone. The money from the sale of my house was in an account Jessica helped manage. I received an allowance, as if I were a child. I hadn't questioned it at first, still reeling from all the changes. But now, a persistent whisper started. Where was the rest of the money? Why didn't I have access to it? That's when the doorbell rang, on a rainy Thursday afternoon. "Good afternoon, I'm Barbara from 302. A woman with kind gray hair and an easy smile introduced herself. "I noticed you moved in a while ago, but we haven't had a chance to chat." Barbara came in. We shared coffee, and for the first time in months, I conversed with someone for more than 5 minutes. She was a widow like me, with 2 grown children living in other states. "We're needing volunteers at the community center here in the neighborhood," she said before leaving. "It's just serving soup once a week. Nothing major. Would you be interested in helping us, Linda?" I agreed, mostly out of sheer emptiness. That first night volunteering, I met Martha, Arthur, and Helen, all in their 60s, all with stories that, in some way, echoed my own. We served soup to people experiencing homelessness. We talked. And for the first time since I'd left Jessica's house, I truly laughed. The next week I went back. Then I started going twice a week. Soon enough, I was helping with adult literacy classes too. "Linda, you've got a real way with people," Martha said. "You should consider coordinating an activity here." That night, returning to the apartment I still hadn't brought myself to call home, I realized I hadn't checked my phone for hours. Even more surprising, I didn't feel that desperate anxiety when I saw there were no missed calls. Maybe, I thought as I made myself some tea, destiny had other plans for me. Plans I never would have imagined when I was practically pushed out of my daughter's home, when my grandkids barely looked back. That night, I slept without crying for the first time in months. And I dreamt of possibilities, not losses. But what happened next was even more transformative. The following morning, I woke with a different kind of energy. I opened the windows of the small apartment and, for the first time, noticed how beautifully the morning light streamed in, forming patterns on the floor. Maybe it wasn't the space I would have chosen, but I could make it mine. I went to the community center earlier that day. Martha was organizing donated books when I arrived. "Linda, so glad you're here. We were just talking about you," she said, adjusting her glasses on her wrinkled face. "We have an idea to propose." We sat in the small volunteers' room, where Arthur was already waiting for us with coffee. "We've noticed how well the kids respond to you during snack time," he began. "And Barbara mentioned you used to tell stories to your grandkids." I did, I confirmed, feeling that familiar pang in my chest. Every night. We're looking to start a storytelling program for the neighborhood kids, Martha explained. Many of them have parents who work all day. Others come from shelters. They need someone to dedicate time to them. I looked at those two hopeful faces across from me. People who barely knew me, but who saw value in me. I don't know if I have the talent to coordinate something like that. I hesitated. Nonsense, Arthur smiled. We've seen how you are with people. Besides, it wouldn't be coordinating at first. Just telling stories, twice a week. I accepted, more out of gratitude for their trust than from believing it would work. We set a start date for the following week. My first storytelling session was a revelation. I sat in a rocking chair that Arthur had specially brought for the occasion, with 10 children between 4 and 9 years old, sitting on colorful cushions in front of me. Grandma Linda is going to tell you a story today, Barbara announced, using Grandma so naturally, a title I hadn't expected to hear here. I looked at those children, some shy, others restless, all strangers. For a moment, I saw Gabe and Sophie's faces among them, and felt a lump in my throat. I took a deep breath. Do you know the story of the tree that wanted to move? I asked. Heads shook negatively. I began to narrate the story I had invented for Gabe when he was 5, about a tree dissatisfied with its place in the forest, dreaming of seeing the world. As the story progressed, I saw the children's eyes widen. When I reached the part where the tree finally understands that its deep roots were its strength, not its prison, I noticed it wasn't just the children who were absorbed. Some adults had stopped to listen too. The tree realized it could stretch its branches to the sky, welcome birds from all places, and in doing so, see the world without abandoning who it truly was, I concluded. A reverent silence followed for a few seconds before a girl with colorful braids asked, Grandma Linda, are you coming back to tell more stories? That spontaneous grandma, coming from a child who had just met me, touched something deep inside me. Yes, sweetie, I'll be back. In the following weeks, the group of children grew. 20, then 30 little listeners. I started bringing simple props. A colorful scarf that became butterfly wings. A seashell that held the sound of the sea. An old hat that had belonged to Paul, and now served for different characters. One day, as I was packing up my things after the session, a social worker who worked at the center approached me. Linda, your work with the children has been remarkable, she said. Many of them come from difficult situations, broken families. Some hardly receive any attention at home. I nodded, understanding very well what it meant not to receive attention. We have a project to expand this work, she continued. We'd like you to coordinate a regular storytelling program, perhaps even with reading workshops for the older ones. We'd have a small stipend. I don't need payment, I interrupted. The money from the sale of my house should be enough too. I stopped, remembering that I didn't have access to that money, only to the allowance Jessica managed. Well, maybe a small stipend would be good, I conceded. That night, in my apartment, I looked at the phone. It had been almost 2 weeks since Jessica had called. I mustered my courage and dialed her number. Hello? Her voice sounded distant, like she was answering a telemarketing call. Hi, honey. It's Mom. Oh, hi, Mom. Everything okay? Her tone was polite, but rushed. Yes, I'm fine. Actually, I'm volunteering at a community center nearby. That's nice, Mom. Silence. Then, look, we're having dinner right now. Can I call you back? Of course, I replied, knowing the call wouldn't come. I just wanted to ask about the money from the house sale. I'm thinking of moving to a slightly larger place, maybe. Another silence, more tense. I don't think that's a good idea, Mom. You've just settled in there. Besides, the real estate market isn't good for buying right now. I wasn't talking about buying, just renting something better. And I'd like to have access to my account, Jessica. It's the money from the sale of my house. Her voice hardened. We agreed I'd manage it, remember? So you wouldn't have to worry about bills and paperwork. Yes, but I have to go now, Mom. The kids are calling. After the call, I stared at the phone, a bitter taste in my mouth. For the first time, I allowed myself to see the situation with stark clarity. It wasn't just the apartment or the physical distance. Jessica had taken control of my money, of my independence. The next day, I looked for Arthur, who had mentioned he was a retired lawyer. I need some advice, I said after narrating my situation. The money from the sale of my house is in an account my daughter controls. I don't know how much is left, and I don't have access to it. Arthur looked at me with a mix of compassion and indignation. Linda, that's extremely problematic. Did you sign a power of attorney giving her full authority? I tried to remember the documents Jessica had presented to me after the house sale. I had signed several papers, trusting my daughter to look out for my best interest. I think so, I admitted, embarrassed. We'll look into it, he said, determined. If that's the case, we can revoke the power of attorney. It's your money, Linda. Your life. In the following weeks, with Arthur's help, I discovered the extent of what had happened. Jessica not only controlled my money, she had transferred a large portion of it to a joint account with David, supposedly for safe investments. The revelation was painful, but also liberating. With legal guidance, I managed to revoke the power of attorney and regain control of what remained of my resources. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to give me autonomy. I rented a larger apartment in the same neighborhood, near the community center. 2 bedrooms, a bright living room, a small balcony where I placed potted plants. I bought simple furniture, but it was mine. I hung old and new photographs on the walls, the latter with my friends from the center and the children from the storytelling sessions. Throughout this whole process, Jessica called only once, when she learned through the bank about the revocation of the power of attorney. How could you do this, Mom? Her voice wavered between anger and incredulity. After everything we've done for you! What exactly have you done for me, Jessica? I asked calmly. You practically pushed me out of my home, isolated me from my grandchildren, took control of my money. We were taking care of you, of that money, for your future. My future is now, Jessica. I'm 67, not 97. I still have life ahead of me, and I want to live it with dignity. The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. It wasn't rushed or irritated. It was the silence of someone confronting an inconvenient truth. The boys ask about you sometimes, she finally said, in a lower tone. It was my turn to be silent. My heart tightened, but not in the same devastating way as before. They're always welcome at Grandma's house, I replied. You are too, whenever you truly want to see me. 6 months passed since that conversation. My life found its own rhythm, filled with activities that gave me purpose. The storytelling program grew, now with reading workshops and even a small newspaper made by the older children. I formed a close group of friends: Barbara, Martha, Arthur, Helen, and other volunteers from the center. We dined together regularly, sharing stories, supporting each other. A chosen family, as Barbara always said. It was after one of those dinners just a few weeks ago that I found Jessica waiting at the door of my building. "Mom!" She seemed nervous, clutching her purse tight. "Can we talk?" I invited her in. Her eyes swept around the apartment, taking in the new furniture, the photographs, the books neatly organized on the shelves. "It's beautiful here," she commented, sounding genuinely surprised. "Thank you. It's my home now." We sat in the small living room. I offered her some tea, which she accepted more out of politeness than actual desire. "The kids have been asking about you," she began, looking into her cup. "Gabriel has a piano recital next week. He'd really like you to come." A mix of emotions swirled inside me. Relief, suspicion, and a tiny flicker of hope. "Why now, Jessica? After more than a year of practically no contact?" She sighed, finally meeting my gaze. "David and I are separating," she revealed. "Things haven't been good for a long time, but we tried to keep up appearances. He wasn't a good husband. Or a good father, to be honest." I stayed silent, letting her continue. "I've realized a lot of things in the past few months. How he controlled everything. The house, the money, even how I connected with you." She paused. "I'm not blaming it all on him. I allowed it. I was part of it. Especially what we did to you." A tear slipped down her face. "When you moved out, he convinced me it would be better if we managed the money from your house sale. Said you wouldn't know how to handle it. That you needed our protection." She wiped her face. "I believed him. Or I wanted to believe him. It was convenient for me." "And the investments?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "There weren't any. He used some of the money to open a business that failed. The rest, well, you got what was left." I nodded, not surprised, but still feeling the heavy weight of their betrayal. "The kids miss you," she continued. "I do too, Mom. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but..." "It's not about deserving it, Jessica," I interrupted gently. "Forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you offer. And I forgive you." Her eyes widened, incredulous. "How can you? After everything we did?" I thought about the kids at the community center. So many from broken homes, carrying grudges that weren't theirs to bear. I thought about how resentment is a poison we drink, hoping the other person will die. Because holding on to that anger would only hurt me more. I replied. "And because, despite everything, you're my daughter. That never changed." She cried then. Not polite tears, but deep, guttural sobs that seemed to come from a place long repressed. I got up and sat beside her, holding her like I hadn't since she was a little girl. "This doesn't mean we'll go back to how things were," I explained when she calmed down. "Trust takes time to rebuild, but we can start over if you want to." Gabriel's recital was on a Thursday evening. I sat in the third row next to Jessica. Sophia, almost 8 now, settled onto my lap as if we hadn't been separated for months. "Grandma, you're going to like this," she whispered. Gabriel practiced really hard. When my grandson walked onto the small stage, our eyes met. A shy smile touched his face, followed by a discreet wave. I waved back, feeling my heart expand. He played Für Elise, with a few stumbles, but with obvious dedication. At the end, we gave him a standing ovation. His eyes sparkled when he came to find us. "Grandma, you really came," he exclaimed, hugging my waist. "Of course I came, my love. Wouldn't have missed it for anything." On the way home, their house, not mine anymore. Gabriel chatted non-stop about his piano lessons, about a book he was reading, about how he wanted to show me his new computer game. "You can sleep over any time, Grandma," Sophia suggested. "We have a guest room now." I looked at Jessica, who nodded with a small smile. "That would be wonderful," I replied. "But you can both visit me too. I have a special room for my grandkids." Truth be told, it was my makeshift office, where I prepared for my storytelling sessions. But it could easily transform into a space for them. Today, 2 years after being essentially pushed out of my daughter's home, I have a life I never imagined. I coordinate the children's literature program at the community center, with a small salary that complements my retirement. My apartment has become a gathering place for friends, a space where I feel truly at home. Gabriel and Sophia spend 1 weekend a month with me. We cook together, play board games, and yes, I make those famous chocolate chip cookies only Grandma can bake. Jessica and I are rebuilding our relationship, step by step. There are scars, but there's also healing. Just last week, I took my grandchildren to the community center for the first time. Gabriel, 10 now, offered to play piano for the kids. Sophia helped hand out snacks. "Grandma, are you like a teacher here?" Gabriel asked, watching how the children swarmed around me. "Something like that," I smiled. "I tell stories, help with lessons, listen to what they have to say. Just like you used to do with us," Sophia piped up. "Yes, sweetie, just like I do with you." Later, as I drove them back home, Gabriel grew quiet in the back seat. "Grandma, remember when you moved out of our house?" I felt a pang in my chest. "I remember, my love." "I didn't really understand back then. Dad said you wanted your own house, and that we'd visit you all the time. But we didn't," Sophia finished, "and I missed you." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes. All of us. Me, your mom, your dad. The important thing is that now we're together again. In a different way, but together. "I like your apartment," Sophia declared. "And your friends at the center. Mrs. Barbara taught me how to make bead bracelets. And I like that you have so many friends now," Gabriel added. "Before you only had us." That observation, so simple and childish, held a profound truth I hadn't fully grasped myself. Before, my life revolved exclusively around Jessica and my grandchildren. Now I had an entire community, friends, colleagues, the kids at the center, my adopted grandchildren. When I dropped them off at home that night, Jessica invited me in for tea. "The kids absolutely loved the center," she commented as the little ones went to put their things away. I've never seen Gabriel so enthusiastic about volunteering. "They have good hearts," I replied, "just like their mom." She smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "I'm trying, Mom. Trying to be better than I was." "We all are, sweetie. Every single day." The next morning, I woke up early to prepare for my storytelling session. As I organized the books and props, I found an old photo I'd set aside. Me, Paul, and baby Jessica, from our very first Christmas as a family. I looked at that image for a long time. We were so young, so full of hope and plans. I never imagined our family journey would include such a devastating rupture. And then, a reconciliation still very much under construction. I slipped the photo into my bag. Later, I'd show it to the kids at the center as part of a story about how families can get lost and find their way back again. Because this is the truth I discovered after being cast out by my own flesh and blood. Family isn't just about those who gave us life or share our DNA. Family are the ones we choose to love, and who choose us back every single day. Sometimes when I'm at the community center, surrounded by smiling children and colleagues who've become dear friends, I look out the window and silently give thanks for the path I was forced to walk. Not because the pain was fair or necessary, but because I found a strength I didn't know I possessed. And when Gabriel and Sophia run to my arms now, I know they do it by choice, not by obligation. When Jessica calls me now to talk, it's not out of guilt, but from a genuine desire for reconnection. Fate indeed had other plans for me. Plans that included loss and gain, pain and healing, a family circle that shattered and then expanded in ways I never imagined possible. As I tell the children in my stories, sometimes we need to get lost to find a better path. And sometimes, what seems like the end of one story is just the beginning of another, richer and more surprising one.